You are the only one here. You are here. So, I hope you know you are for post-independence class, no? Yeah. Post-independence part of the GS. You are for that only. I just want to make sure that you are not in the wrong class. Okay. You see, if you go strictly by the examination syllabus, there is nothing very defined for it except that post-independence India. And if you go by the pattern of the questions that have figured in last 4 or 5 years, since it was added to the GS syllabus, there have been 3-4 questions. One, and they're very general questions. Some of them are more concerned with the history of India's foreign policy. Like one question was regarding Tashkent Treaty. One was regarding Indo-Pak War and the creation of Bangladesh. One was and that is not about foreign policy. I am just first. Then there was this, which is not particularly about foreign policy, but it had one element of it with Jai Jawan of 1965, Indo-Pak War. There was a question about Jai Jawan, Jai Kishan, the blending of Green Revolution with India's security concerns in mid-60s during Lal Bahadur Shastri's time, the slogan. And then there was, as he said, a question about how linguistic estates have addressed India's regional concerns or something like that. There was a question, and then there was a question about movements, the Bhudan movement of Vinoba Bhave. These are the only 4 or 5 questions that have figured in last 4 or 5 years. But that does not mean that there cannot be more number of questions from different areas. So the pattern of questions till now may not be the ideal roadmap for preparation. You have to prepare because it's a very large area, and like contemporary history in other countries also, it is current affairs in flux of last 60-70 years. So it is less academically researched in terms of its narrative in textbooks, and some few textbooks have been written, few historians have paid attention to it, but still the literature on contemporary history in India, that is, if you take this as a point of departure post-independence India, is not very rich. So there are 2 ways of going about it. I would follow one of them, or say combination of both. One is since for more than last 70 years, and since there are 6 and 7 classes for it. Yes. Just close that. So one way is to go thematically. The thematic approach to it, so you can reduce it into various subheads, and like political consolidation, democratic consolidation, the economic developments, institutions, movements. Now, one would be the thematic one. The second one would be the chronological approach. The chronological approach, you can move decades by decade. So, the second approach, though more useful historiographic approach, but for general studies, I think a combination of the thematic approach with the internal orientation towards chronology would be more useful. So, like if you take thematic approach like the political and national consolidation, nation building, institution building, the strengthening of democracy, that is one theme. Second theme could be economic development. Third theme could be the movements that would cover an array of movements, environmental, social, peasants, movement, many movements, and then fourth could be regional concerns, ethnic conflicts, these kind of things. So the thematic treatment would be the more useful way of approaching it, though the thematic approach should not lose sight of the chronological themes within it. So I would be starting with the political consolidation and nation building. Political consolidation and nation building. And in next 6 or 7 classes, I would like to cover the different themes with the relevant chronology and important events and debates around it. So, when you are approaching few general things, when you are approaching contemporary history, what is the challenge that you face that you don't face in, say, when you approach ancient and medieval or even modern history? No, I am not talking about a very confined theme about question answer examination, means just but as an approach to studying. But you say what you are saying, the variety of questions.
Means in ancient and medieval we can get an idea about how questions can come, but in this section we cannot get like word in which any word has.
You need to have general means your understanding should be broad enough. You can tackle anything. Means it's not that you need to be, say, like in ancient medieval, you need some detailed, say.
The undentured labor which came in 2018.
So.
It was, maybe it was not mentioned.
But is it specific to contemporary history, that question?
I found it difficult to remember the chronology and the names specifically when it comes to history. The different places, different names, different kingdoms with respect to the ancient specifically, and coming on to the medieval as well.
Okay. No, I was specifically talking about contemporary history. How its study is a bit different from how you approach the medieval, ancient, and modern. First thing is that since you are nearer to the time frame, you are also witness to some of the events which comes under contemporary history. So you are also the reader. The student of contemporary history is also the citizen, is also a citizen. He also has views and opinions, very strong views and opinions. It is unlike medieval or ancient history, where a distance of time may have given you a hindsight, a kind of cold logic to it. But here you are a participant in the unfolding of history. So that
You're part of it. You're part of it.
and even the say 70 years back, the post-independent days, that is not very far. You have strong opinions about say the things that happened then. Was Nehruvian policy right? Was Gandhi right? Was Patel right? You are closer to it.
Your ideas
So
are coming on this.
yes, and same, the historian who is writing it, who has written it, is also a citizen, and there are more chances, though ancient medieval history have been also written with bias, this one, because as the British historian E.H. Carr famously said that before reading history, read the historian, he will like the history that he likes. So even ancient history, medieval history are biased, but here there is more danger of the personal preferences or ideological leanings or opinions of the historian getting into the contemporary. There is more danger. So one second thing which you should be while writing answers, you should be guarding yourself against is what Maitland said, that what is now in past was once in the future. What is now in the past is now in the future. What does it mean? That if you are looking at a policy which was adopted in 1957, now you have to look at it from the standpoint of 1957, not 2019, because people who framed that policy had the information which was available in 1957, not 2019. So what is now in past was once in the future. So you may have the benefit of hindsight, but those people didn't have the benefit of hindsight. It's just like after a cricket match is over, everyone is wise, he should have done that, he should have done that. But when the game is going on, he may not be having access to that kind of information or wisdom. So what is once in the what is now in past was once in the future. So that is also something that you have to be guarding yourself against. Now, I would be starting with the three say major challenges, challenges that India faced, or even you can say 4 or 5 major challenges when it became independent. Now, one conventional way is to look at it, the 3 major challenges, is to consolidate itself as a nation. The first challenge that it faced was to consolidate itself as a nation, especially after the bitter experience of partition and the reality of so many princely estates, more than 500 princely estates, and how could it see itself as a nation state even in territorial terms? So that was one of the major challenges it had. The second challenge that it had was that we will take it up later, that though it was on course of making a constitution, the Constituent Assembly had been set up in November 1946, yet when there was also a challenge that when that constitution is finally adopted, how to now merely adopting a constitution is not enough. How to translate it into concrete democratic practice, concrete democratic practice, how to strengthen or even say institutions or regular means of constitutional administration, how to strengthen that, how to set precedents for generations to come in constitutional governance, in institutional integrity. So that was the second. Now, converting democratic ideas of constitution into actual democratic practice. Second. Third is, of course, India was India inherited a ravaged and a very poor economy with millions of people poverty stricken, and apart from poor economic conditions, there were deep cleavages in the society. There were entrenched patterns of social operation through caste and other means of discrimination. Now, to deliver that kind of economic and social justice, which was commensurate to the realization of constitutional ideals of equality and real economic freedom. Now, that was the third challenge: economic development, social justice. Now, that was the third challenge. Now, this is a conventional way of looking at it. Now, you see, it was also a time that 1947, when India became independence, it was also a time, say 47 to 60, it was also a time when the whole world was going through decolonization. So lot of the problems that India had at that time was not very different from other post-colonial societies, but it had something more to deal with. One was that troubled history of partition, and we will come to it now. But what was it facing which was very common to other post-colonial societies? Number one, in colonial past, all these countries which were subject to colonial rule all had some kind of colonial state structures, but now colonial state but they didn't have the binding force of a nation state, a state which is looking for a nation. Now, India, with all its diversities, the first project that the first great challenge that it had, which was not very different from other post-colonial societies, was to blend a very elaborate state apparatus with the guiding force of, or the commonality of, a nation state. You know, a state. Now, this was not different from, as I said, other post-colonial states. Okay. Now, how do you think that why I am coming to the first thematic? We will, for say next 2 days, we will deal with it, that political and national consolidation. This is our first theme. you must have come across this, that India is a nation in making. Indian nationalism is a work in progress. Now, why so? If you go by the conventional definitions of nationalism, like Benedict Anderson says that it's an imagined community. It's an imagined community because nationalism is a cultural concept. It is not merely political. A state may be a political concept, but nationality is a cultural concept. Now, that idea of the idea of a nation had a lot of concrete challenges in India. One was, of course, partition. Now, since partition had happened at the, say, midnight, so we would be dealing with the post-colonial phase, post-independence phase. We can only deal with its aftermath, the aftermath of partition. Now, in such circumstances, what are the challenges that partition posed to Indian state? What are the challenges the partition posed to Indian state? Okay, that is one thing. Again, first let us deal with it in a territorial sense. Okay. Let us say first say a very practical problem. First, we will graduate from practical problems to the more seminal ones. First is, like, you see, for partition, now there were, what was the criterion of partition? The religious majority areas. Now, say Muslim areas, there were no when you had the geographical contiguity of Muslim concentration areas. So within India, taking India as a geographical unit, it was first difficult to put the Muslim concentration contiguous areas. Now, one was in west, India's west, that is the Punjab region, and then in between there was a huge landmass where you could not find Muslim majority areas. So the second major chunk was in the east, Bengal. Now, this separation of two Muslim concentration areas with a huge landmass, now it was a territorial problem for the state. So what was decided? The solution was decided that, okay, both can exist as parts of Pakistan, one in west and one is this. This was a practical problem. Now, second is that some Muslim majority areas or high concentration areas, like say the northwest frontier province. Now, its leader, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, who is also known as Frontier Gandhi, he didn't opt to go to be a part of Pakistan. Now, ultimately, he had to agree, or Pakistan prevailed. But that was another problem, that what to do with areas where the leader of the community leaders are not willing to be part of. The third problem is that even in the Muslim, high concentration areas, like in many parts of Punjab or Bengal, now the whole area may be a high concentration area, but there could be districts where there is a very large number of Hindus, or maybe Hindus are in majority. Now, how to deal with that? So, what it meant that even by the midnight of 1947, people were not sure whether they are going to be part of India or Pakistan. You are getting it? So because then an arrangement was made that we would do a survey district by district. So even in Bengal, that's how the concept of, say, the East Bengal which is now Bangladesh, East Bengal, which was part of Pakistan, West Bengal. Now, how the separation of districts? Which district had to come to West Bengal, which to East Bengal? Now, that was a problematic area. Similarly, in, say, Pakistan, in Punjab, now the Western Punjab was with Pakistan and Eastern was with India. Now, how to segregate that? That was a practical problem of territoriality. These are administrative concerns. We will look into more. Now, fourth is what he talked about is the problem of refugees. Now, you see, even in areas, suppose in with district-wise survey, we found that here there are Muslims more, so okay, let us give it to East Bengal. Here there are Muslim more, let us give it to Western Punjab. But there would still be not even a single case where there are zero Hindus, where there are zero Muslims. So still there would be a minority even in the community specific area where there is a majority of other. So that would leave a minority there, and with as he said, communal violence, a sense of security prevailed among the minorities which was left there. So mass migration, because they left all their property, households, and started migrating in mass to areas which they considered safe for their religious community. So someone may be having a house in Lahore, but with sense of insecurity, they left. Now, while they were leaving, there was all kind of massacres, rapes, and all sort of things happen. Now, ensuring the proper rehabilitation and proper living conditions of refugees who were coming back, that was another very key concern. Means for governments of both countries, but we are concerned with the Indian side of it. So rehabilitation of refugees coming back from the areas which had now had become part of Pakistan was another immediate concern. ठीक है? Now, there are a lot of cultural references around it. Now, there have been writers have written about it. Like you see Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan, or Hindi writer Bhism Sahni, Tamas, or a lot of writers. Now there is there is a sub-theme around it: women and partition. Now, women and partition, women on both sides had to bear the brunt of communal violence, and there were actual violence, sexual violence, as well as honor killings, where families, in order to defend women, killed their women folk. And there is a film, it's called Khamosh Pani, where you have a well where the women jumped into well to save themselves from the communal mob, and there came a point when they were saved because the well was filled with women, so it could take no more women. So women who jumped, actually some of them couldn't die. So that is a sub-theme within it. Anyway, so what I'm saying that these four challenges with the partition, you say, one was we began with contiguity problem, that how to identify the concentration areas. Then we came to problems where community leaders of a religious majority community were not willing to go. Now, how to deal with that? Third was the problem of what to do within those high concentration areas with little pockets, which had in fact the majority of other community. So district-wise surveys. Now fourth one, that even if we identified the little pockets with different majority, what to do with the other community. So how to ensure their safety or security. Even if you secured, still people would feel insecurity and they migrated in mass. Now how to deal with the rehabilitation of those who migrated. Now these were the practical administrative concerns. Now the other concern which was equally important, and this will take some time, this you may have read also, we will deal with it now, is the accession and integration of more than 500 princely estates. Estimated to be around 565. Some books refer to it 521, some 560, some 565. NCRTs like NCRTs have put it at 565, which may be correct because if you read V.P. Menon, who was one of the architects of integration of state along with Vallabhbhai Patel. Now he has written an account of the integration of estates, which was published in 1957. Okay, so 1957. So he also puts it around this. So I take it as the authoritative one. So 565 integration of princely estates. Why you think this was very challenging? Why this was challenging? What were princely estates?
They were under the protectorate of British India. They were under the protectorate of colonial government, having their own autonomous units of administration.
But okay, autonomous units, but what was the nature of that autonomy?
They do not fall under the law of Indian.
Okay. No, it actually when Britain came, British first East India Company, and then from when power was transferred from East India Company to British government. So British had direct control over, say, 2/3 of the what is now we call India, but 1/3 of land was still with the princely estates means the former kingdoms who had who had entered a treaty with the British that though they accept British paramountcy, that is, Britain can govern their defense, foreign affairs, communication, but it would also grant them autonomy and the right to administer their area under certain constraints. This is called paramountcy. Paramountcy. So they can use their wealth, they can use their palaces, they can also issue orders to their citizens, which was restricted by the British administration in the way that British could appoint their ministers. Okay, the British. So this arrangement that they entered with, like say, states like there were more than 565. So say Hyderabad, Junagadh, Gwalior or Bhopal, lot of states. So there were more than 500. So this is also called paramountcy as well as suzerainty. Paramountcy and this system was called suzerainty or paramountcy. Both you can call. So princely estates were, and they constituted almost 1/3 of India, while the rest 2/3 was British India. Okay, so Britain had control here, but that was a control under an arrangement called paramountcy. Okay. The constitution making would come under political as well as I am briefly digressing from the topic. Means constitution making would come under the political as well as democratic theme, but since we adopted it in 1950 and it will come later. First, we need to address something which was more immediate, the princely estates. First, you need to have an territory to govern, to have a constitution. Means constitution adopted, but where? So you have to go by that sequence. So you see, now when India became independent, of course, there was partition, so a part of the territory went to Pakistan, and then they were left with primarily areas which were governed by presidencies, like Bengal Presidency and Madras Presidency, Bombay Presidency. So, means 19th century, and of course, after these presidencies, the political capital you see what means of colonial India in early 20th century was the capital shifted to Delhi in 1911. Now, if say yes.
When it comes to the other provinces, for example, Cuttack and Assam,
and they were part of Bengal Presidency.
Okay. Whether they were presidency, then they converted the provinces or other?
Yeah, let me see. So actually, Bombay Presidency, it covered what is now modern Maharashtra, Gujarat, even parts of Rajasthan. Then there were central provinces, Madhya Pradesh, now central provinces was later added. It was not part of it. Means if you go by the sequence of creation of presidencies, it was how East India Company. First, all the, if you see the coastal towns, Madras, Bombay. Now, provinces were part of presidencies. Provinces, one presidency covered lot of provinces. So there was, and see Bengal. You must have heard in 1905, Lord Curzon divided Bengal east and on though he said administrative, but the commentators say that it was on communal lines, the religious line. Now again in when it was annulled, when it was abrogated in 1911, then what they created instead, that there was Bengal and Bihar was separated from it, and for brief period, very brief period, even Odisha was made part of this, very brief period. So and Bombay presidency till, you see, till 1960, Maharashtra and Gujarat were same. Means it was called Bombay presidency. In only in 1960s did they become separate states, Maharashtra and Gujarat. So presidency covered a lot of areas. Means it was not only single province. A number of provinces were clubbed together in a presidency. Okay. Yes. Anything more? No. Okay. So why it was important? That because you see, it was like this. Here is Madras, here is Hyderabad, which is a princely estate. Here is Bhopal. Now here is, say, with some distance. Here is Delhi, say, or Indore, or someone. Means what I am saying, that geographical contiguity was such that now here you have a part of India, here which is a princely estate, which the option for princely estates in the India Independence Act 1947 was that either they could decide to be a part of India or Pakistan, or they can decide to be independent. Okay. So if they chose to be independent, you had this peculiar scenario where you had 500 princely estates and then some Indian region here, some princely estate there, some this. It was a recipe for chaos, for administrative chaos and anarchy. As Patel said, it was a kind of what he said was a belly. I am forgetting that. But anyway, so there was a British commentator who said that India can do without its limbs and hands taken away, but how would it do without the midriff? Means the main body which had no midriff, so many princely estates, and some pockets which were in India, some pockets which were independent princely estates. So the biggest administrative challenge for a new country of India was to integrate these estates into Indian Union. Indian Union. This was the biggest administrative challenge. Now, how was this done? How was this done? Was that these agreements were entered before independence. All these treaties and agreements were institutionalized between the rulers of princely estates and the British government. So it was the say while parting away. Now British had this Governor General institution in form of Lord Mountbatten. Now he is painted in different ways, but as Ramchand Guha in India After Gandhi says, perhaps his only contribution to our to our post-independent history, the only constructive contribution he made is that he facilitated in ways that is least known. Means we don't know much about it, but with the unearthing of lot of classified documents, it becomes clear that he helped Sardar Patel and the Indian government officials to do it with his persuasive powers. Now we will get into some details into how. Now you see, these estates, all these estates were not very difficult to be integrated, but some of them were problematic. Some already had during independence, a struggle for India's struggle for independence. You know, there was this State People's Conference. You know, State People's Conference. Conference. It was also Praja Mandals. Now Praja Mandals were the state units which were affiliated to State People's Conference and Congress. It was an institution promoted with active support by the Congress in 1920s. So, and Praja Mandal were the state units of it. They represented the democratic aspirations of the citizens of these princely estates to have a democratic form of government, and India was sure that princely estates may be ruled by the rulers, but the people wanted to be part of the Indian Union, people of these princely estates. They didn't want to remain as citizens of princely estates ruled by monarchs and rajas and kings. They wanted to be part of a democratic India. Now, this was the popular pulse, this was a perception. So, and with this, the Indian leadership had confidence that most of these rulers of princely estates would agree because of the fear of mass protests or even popular revolts. Because they could sense that the popular mood was not in favor of their continuance as the rulers of their estates. So there was this sense. Now, when Sardar Patel was made the Home Minister of independent India, a new department was created, and that was Estates Department for this specific purpose. Estates Department. Now, earlier during British time, the affairs of princely estates and their relationship with British India was seen by political department. Now, when Patel became Home Minister, he क्या हुआ? नहीं. So I was saying that a new department, a states department, was created. The secretary to it was Mr. V.P. Menon. V.P. Menon, he was earlier, say, advisor to Lord Wavell, and he was not from Indian Civil Service. He had rose from a clerk to become a secretary, and he was also the bureaucracy, the topmost bureaucracy in times of in the time of 1947 in India. They made fun of him. Because they were envious of his gradual rise, not gradual, rapid rise. Anyway, that is what I am saying is that Patel, V.P. Menon, and they sought active participation of Lord Mountbatten for persuading these princely estates to come and be part of India. Now there are two things. Act of accession and integration, both are different. Act of accession just means that they are becoming part of the union, but with certain conditions. It's with certain conditions. Maybe they will say that we want autonomy, some areas this, and integration means no conditions, just we are part of you. So act of accession and integration have this minor, not very minor, it's a substantive difference, this kind of difference. Now there were, now say Bikaner, Baroda. Now these were princely estates which were earliest to join. These were earliest to join Indian Union, and there was a nationalist current also, mood of people, and what? Rulers were. Now these were some major. So you must be saying that how 565. Now all 565 of them were not big kingdoms. Some were small principalities with say 4 or 5 villages also, which had a king. So some were very small, but some were very big, like say Hyderabad, and which were big, like even Bikaner, Baroda. These were big kingdoms, but some were very small. Some this was one of the ways. Second was done through a lot of diplomacy and persuasive talk, like messaging their ego, making them meet Lord Mountbatten, which was a big thing for them, and satisfying their royal egos and satisfying their vanities. So that was one thing. Ensuring that they will get an annual package or kind of say maintenance allowance from the state. That was one thing. So these were things, and by by independence, most of the by the time independence was achieved, say 15th August 1947, most of the princely estates had become part of the Indian Union, but the challenge was that some didn't, and that is the area that you should be looking at briefly. Now, which were the problematic provinces? One was Travancore. Travancore. Travancore was a princely estate on the southern tip of India. It had entered into an agreement with British government as early as 1795. So, and it was, though ruled by a king, but its administration was in the hand of an Indian lawyer, a very famous Indian lawyer, Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer. Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer. Now, he had, so it was very important for India to that Travancore becomes part. First, it had a coastline. It had a coastline. Second, it had maritime trade. Also, it had deposits of monzite, I think. Monzite, now thorium is extracted from monzite, and at that time, when nuclear age had arrived, it was sought after. So it was very sought after, monzite. So even it was thought that British were interested in Travancore not becoming part of India. It was speculated that there were politicians in London which were eyeing monzite reserves, and they were interested in Travancore not becoming part of the Indian Union, so that they could trade independently with Travancore for the monzite reserves. That may be a conspiracy theory, but that was one of the reasons. Anyway, now Patel and his emissary, that is V.P. Menon, now they had to persuade Sir Ramaswamy Iyer, C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, and he didn't budge. In fact, he had very derogatory words to say about India. So he had lot of suspicion about the Indian Union, and he called Indian government the scoundrels of Delhi. Now, but he was once attacked by a small incident changed his mindset. That is means he was attacked. He was stabbed by a socialist party leader in Kerala, and after that he was hospitalized, and a lot of things happened behind the doors, and he agreed to accede to India. Now, that was one resistance India faced in Travancore. The second resistance was in Junagadh. Junagadh was a Hindu majority princely estate, but governed by a Muslim king. It was a Hindu majority Muslim estate, princely estate, but governed by a Muslim king. It's important. It also you see even the Somnath, the Hindu shrine also comes under it. It's in say I think in Kathiawar coastline. So it it is in the same area. Even Sardar Patel came from the same area. So Junagadh, Now, the ruler of Junagadh was firstly undecided, but then he fall prey to the temptation of joining Pakistan, and Pakistan lured it with say they said that we would facilitate maritime trade, we would give you port facility in Karachi, and lot of things they said, and he had even acceded to joining Pakistan. Now Patel, through very swift, you can say strategic moves, what he did was that he first integrated two contiguous regions to Junagadh, Mongrel and Babrawadi, with India, and that put a lot of pressure because its adjoining areas were already with India, and with that he mounted diplomatic pressure. Not diplomatic, that would be in international sense, but you can say strategic pressure, and the pressure of the British government also, that to accede to India, and as a face saver, what Junagadh's ruler wanted, that let there be a kind of plebiscite which decides it, and actually a plebiscite was conducted so that India could claim legitimacy there, and I think 93% of people voted in favor of India. So that challenge was thus addressed. Now, third important challenge that you all know is Hyderabad. I think in 1980s, if you see UPSC paper, in 1980s there are 2-3 questions. After that, this part was obliterated from the UPSC syllabus, so questions were not there. If you see 1981, 82, 83, there are questions from integration of princely estates and something. But after that, it was only in 2013 that this was made a part of the main syllabus. So again, you are seeing some questions, but no, it may reappear. So you need to prepare everything. So what I'm saying was Hyderabad, yeah, Hyderabad. Hyderabad is the most important one which you need to look at. Now, as you know, Hyderabad was a princely estate in the Deccan part of the country. Its population principally constituted of people of speaking 3 languages, Marathi, Telugu and Kannada. Marathi, Telugu and Kannada means parts of Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana also means maybe it also constituted some part of Andhra Pradesh also, means earlier it was Andhra only. Can you know all this? So it had a population of about 16 million in 1947. The Hyderabad princely estate had a population of about 16 million, with that is just to make you understand that it had a large area. So it was not a small princely estate. Again, a Hindu majority area with a Muslim king, a Hindu majority princely estate with a Muslim king. Now, it was said to be one of the wealthiest princely estates. The Nizam of Hyderabad was ranked among the wealthiest persons in the world. Uh, is- Still, its property is highly valued. So, uh, but it was also known for very oppressive regime, very oppressive regime, not very popular among people. Now, the Nizam of Hyderabad had a lot of financial resources, and when when there was talk of India getting independence, as a preemptive measure, he had already hired a very famous British lawyer, MacCott. I'm not remembering his exact name, MacDot or something. That is anyway trivial detail. So he was fully prepared to not accede to India. He had made legal preparation to not to accede to India, and he had also started patronizing a political wing, that is Ittihad Muslim, Ittihad Muslimin. Ittihad Muslimin. He had started patronizing this political wing as an antidote to the political mobilization of the Communist Party, which was gaining hold in Telangana region, as well as the Hyderabad Congress Party, the Congress wing, the Hyderabad wing of Congress. So he had made political, legal preparation to avert any kind of political pressure that would be put on him to accede to India. Okay, so he had made all kind of preparation. There, what it happened that now there was this. Do you remember his name? Qasim. Anyway, there was a lawyer who Qasim, for the time being, Qasim. He was a Aligarh-based lawyer who was given leadership of Ittihad Muslimin. And he radicalized it. He radicalized it in very extreme ways, and even formed this paramilitary wing of Rajakars. This paramilitary wing of Ittihad Muslim now, even before we will come to the actual drama, but they were paramilitary wings, armed wing of Ittihad Muslim. They had all arms, fully prepared with arms to take on India militarily also, and to intimidate the common citizens about not demanding any accession to India or integration with India. So what I am saying, he had politically prepared with this, legally prepared, even military prepared to not be part of India. He was very determined to be not part of India, the Nizam of Hyderabad. So 2-3 things happened. First is that the communists in the rural parts of Hyderabad princely estate, they even Hyderabad princely estate, even 10% of the land area of Hyderabad princely estate was owned by Nizam, and rest by big landlords. So communists had mobilized the rural population, and they had started confiscating property of landowners who had more than 500 acres of land, and after that they brought down the limit to 200 acres, 100 acres. Now this had also unsettled Nizam. He was getting nervous with these developments, and then Congress party in the Hyderabad city as well as other small towns was mobilizing people on the streets and leading mass protests against the violent activities of Rajakars. What Rajakars were doing, they were trying to change the demography of Hyderabad princely estate by intimidating the Hindu population to vacate their houses and leave for other areas of India. Now that had led to mass protest by Congress. Now it was a scenario which was filled with violent confrontations, and now what happened is that Patel sought the good offices of Mountbatten to persuade Nizam to not let the situation get out of control, which was almost taking proportions of a civil war within Hyderabad princely estate among large groups of people going against each other. Now he of course didn't pay heed to it. He was also supported by Pakistan, the Muslim League, Pakistan and other. Now that Qasim, the radicalized leader of Ittihad-e-Muslimin, had presented to Muslims this as a kind of religious war, that this is fight for the Indian Muslims. So he had of course given it a clear religious dimension. Now the only option left for India was now the military option, which Patel used, and Indian troops were sent within 4 days, and with the loss of 2,000 Rajakars and 44 Indian troops, ultimately the king had to, Nizam had to agree to accede to India. Okay? One thing you should, there are two other important ones. One is Manipur. Now what was the nature here, that the king of Manipur had acceded to a treaty with India, which was a kind of accession, with the clause that autonomy of Manipur would be retained. Now it happened so that once that treatment was, that treaty was signed, after that there was a lot of pressure, popular pressure in Manipur to constitute an assembly, to go for popular polls and constitute an assembly. Now, once that assembly was constituted, apart from Congress, the other political parties, the representatives of other political parties which were elected to Manipur Assembly, and Manipur was converted into a kind of constitutional monarchy. So they said that we want to do away with accession to India. We don't agree with what King had agreed to before this assembly was elected. So the Indian government moved swiftly and sealed the integration pact with Manipur, which is a bone of contention till now. So till now there are political commentators in Manipur who question the legitimacy of Indian integration, Manipur's integration to India. So that is one thing that you can look into. Of course, there is Kashmir. So Kashmir, we will take it up in when we deal with foreign. You obviously know. So Kashmir, everyone knows the history, Hari Singh and this that. Or need I repeat? Should I repeat that? Kashmir. So one thing also you can you should remember here that apart from say swift you say strategic talk, some persuasion, Indian government also went back on a lot of assurances of autonomy. Like it integrated a lot of princely estates on the condition that yes, we will honor your autonomy. Once they acceded, Indian government went back on its word. It didn't, and it integrated it. So it is not all clean. No, it is not. So, but that was taken as part of Patel's vision to somehow bring the princely estates on board. So there are a lot of cases where Indian government didn't honor its words on autonomy. Okay, but one thing is that with passage of time, the rulers also gave up that. They didn't find any sense in pursuing autonomy because of the popular mood. The popular mood of the Mountbatten has said that you can't live, in his letter to the rulers of princely estates, he had said that you can't live with neighbors which are not very far and with your people which are also not very far. Means your people are not very far, they are for integration with India, and your neighbors which are also not very far. So gradually the Indian rulers also realized that. Okay. One major thing would again be the linguistic reorganization of states. You see, there during our national movement, there was a strong feeling that the political units that make India are not natural entities. They have been artificially carved for administrative convenience. So there was this feeling. Even the Indian Congress party, I mean in Indian National Congress. So in its 1920 Nagpur session of Congress party, it had decided to constitute its own units on linguistic lines. So it had identified linguistic zones, the zones or regions of India which speak particular language, and the Pradesh Congress committees, the regional units of it, was organized on those lines. But what happened that when India became independent and constitution making process was going on, Congress suddenly forgot that. Why do you think Congress was not very keen on pursuing that reorganization on lines of linguistic identities?
You already covered it in the nation that was unity was the question in question.
Okay. So, yes, that is one reason, that there were already forces of instability with the political climate surcharged with communal tension. Congress saw that further linguistic divisions within Indian territory would be a kind of disruption, will have destabilizing effect. And it was a wrong reading, though. It was a wrong, history proved that it was a wrong reading. But again, I am saying you have to see at that time what was the. So you already know that it had to go and retract, and it had to make a course correction with the famous agitation that Potisri Ram Rulu. He was a Gandhian. He was a Gandhian. He was himself, in fact, a congressman. He was a Gandhian. So he led an agitation for creation of Andhra. So Pradesh on basis of Telugu speaking identity. Now he undertook a 56-day fast and passed away, which created a very violent reaction in southern states, and particularly in the Telugu speaking region. And Pandit Nehru was forced to create Andhra Pradesh in December 1952. So it was the first state created on the basis of lingual identity, linguistic identity. Now, in light of that, in light of the demand of people to see their lingual identity consolidated in form of political unit of a state, it was thought that it is wise to look at the state's reorganization from the lens of linguistic identities. And that's why State Reorganization Commission 1953 was constituted. in 1953, it had 3 members: K.M. Panikar, Fazal Ali, and H.N. Kunjuru. K.M. Panikar, Fazal Ali, and H.N. Kunjuru. Now, for you, the only thing relevant here is that its recommendation was that it saw merit. It approved of the logic of creation of linguistic estates, and following the recommendations of this commission, the State Reorganization Act was passed in 1956. The State Reorganization Act was passed in 1956, and immediately you see, within, say, by immediately I mean in next 1-2 years, you see creation of 14 estates. Creation of 14 estates on linguistic lines. Some took more time, like in 1960, Bombay was, because there was also an experiment with bilingual estates, like Bombay, Marathi, Gujarati both. But even it didn't work, because Gujarati people also wanted or a state of their own, or even Marathi populace also. So there, similarly in 1966, you see the Punjab state. So you see Hindi speaking people and Punjabi speaking people. Now bilingual experiment, but it didn't work, because Punjabi people wanted a distinct state for them only. So Haryana was separated, and so was Himachal Pradesh in 1966. 1972 again. MMT, Manipur, Meghalaya, Tripura. 1987, Arunachal and Mizoram. 1987, Arunachal and Mizoram. Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram. In 87, one more state was created, but it was not on basis of language. That was Goa. Okay. So, when were the last 3 states created? Which year? So, they were not created on basis of language, but on 2 demands: their distinct cultural identity plus the lopsided development. So, for giving development a push, for the correcting the regional imbalance in development. So always the reorganization of a state does not have this linguistic logic, but in the initial decades after independence, the overriding logic for creation of states was linguistic. We will see in retrospect all when we sum up, then we will go for questions and with critical appraisals of these developments. Now only I am giving you a brief say narrative on the developments, what happened. Lastly, when we will sum up this all, we will see these developments critically. one development which should come here again is the refugees. What was two immediate things that refugees and constitution making. Oh, refugees provoke the kind of reactions because you see, even the political space that was like Syama Prasad Mukherjee when he formed Jan Sangh in 1951. Now his central grievance was of the unjust treatment given to Hindu refugees in Bengal. In that is one. Now the kind of treatment that he was of the view that the central government is more focused on minority appeasement or even giving disproportionate attention to the Hindu refugees coming from the Punjab side of Pakistan. Okay, so it is a very sensitive issue. Though what has happened is that because of certain ideological leaning of the historians who have written post-independent history, they have whitewashed a lot of things. So these discrepancies or this discriminatory nature in the handling of refugees has not been properly chronicled. But with whatever historical material we have or whatever historical text we have, we will deal with these two tomorrow, refugees and constitution making. Today, you have any questions regarding this? Yes. मैं कुछ चैप्टर्स दूंगा बुक से, मैं हैंड रिटन नहीं दूंगा मटेरियल।
मतलब पढ़ेंगे कैसे?
पढ़ेंगे मतलब एक तो बुक से ही पढ़िएगा और कहाँ से पढ़िए?
नहीं तो मटेरियल वगैरह मिल जाता वो अच्छा होता बुक।
किस तरह का मटेरियल चाहिए आपको?
जो आपको ठीक लगे मतलब वो प्रोवाइड करवा दीजिए।
ओके। जो क्लास में जैसे मैं प्रोसीड कर रहा हूँ उसको फॉलो कीजिए, उसको भी आप कंसोलिडेट कर लीजिएगा, उससे भी आपको आपके काम लायक मिल जाएगा। ठीक है। जो चीज़ लगे कि इसको कॉन्क्रीटाइज करने के लिए, जैसे मैं कुछ एक्सप्लेन कर रहा हूँ और उसको कॉन्क्रीटाइज करने के लिए नोट्स फॉर्म में, तो आप मुझे बोलिए कि इसको लिखवा दीजिए, तो उसको मैं लिखवा दूंगा उस फैक्ट फॉर्म में, फैक्चुअल डिटेल्स के साथ। ठीक है। तो आपको मुझे रोक के लिखवा लेना चाहिए था ना कि इसको लिखवा दीजिए। हम्म?
ऐसे में जो पढ़ा सब भूल जाएंगे, मतलब 7-8 दिन में भूल जाएंगे, नोट्स अगर बन जाए तो सही है।
तो जो बोलता हूँ उसी को बोलिए कि थोड़ा धीमा बोलिए। देखिए एक दो चीज़ बता रहा हूँ मैं कि स्ट्रक्चरिंग, जैसे कि 7 डिकेड्स हैं, 70 ईयर्स है ना, तो व्हाट आई सेड कि 7-8 themes हैं. Themes, if you classify them into themes, a lot of areas, topics would come into that. ठीक है, और उस थीम्स को एक स्ट्रक्चरिंग कर लीजिए ना, कि ऐसे ऐसे करने, जैसे मैंने पॉलिटिकल कंसोलिडेशन से शुरू किया, इसके अंदर जितने सब टॉपिक्स हैं उसमें ये, उसके अंदर जो भी, अभी जैसे कि मैंने शुरू किया था प्रिंसली स्टेट से, फिर ये रेफ्यूजीज, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेकिंग, एंड फिर नेशन बिल्डिंग. These are also part of nation building, but nation building as a broader theme. So yes, बोलिए.
नहीं सर, वही पढ़ रहा
ऑर्गेनिकली प्रोसीड कीजिए कि ये है, ये ब्रॉडर थीम है, इसके अंदर इसके ऐसे है, ये है. सो जो थीमेटिक लिंकेजेस हैं उसको कॉन्सेप्चुलाइज कीजिएगा, तो बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ याद करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. एक एक पढ़ सकते हैं क्लास 12 की, पॉलिटिक्स सिंस इंडिपेंडेंस, एक क्लास 12 की एनसीईआरटी. पॉलिटिकल साइंस की एनसीईआरटी है ये, पॉलिटिक्स सिंस इंडिपेंडेंस. इंडिया आफ्टर गांधी ठीक है, मतलब वो नैरेटिव में ज़्यादा डिटेल्स में है, नैरेटिव वे में लिखा हुआ है. फिर क्रोनोलॉजिकली अगर प्रोसीड करना है तो वो तो है ही, इंडिया आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस बिपिन चंद्रा वाली, तो मोटी. और भी कई किताबें हैं, किताबें बहुत हैं. सो और भी कई लोगों ने लिखा है. ब्रायन टेंडन की किताब है इंडिया इन लास्ट 7 डिकेड्स, और भी बहुत. एनीवे, आप एनसीईआरटी सिर्फ एक बार ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा देखना है तो उसको देख लीजिए. बाकी जो मैं डिस्कस करता हूँ, हाँ, अगर कुछ आज वाला जो डिस्कस किया वो कॉन्क्रीटाइज अगर होना में ये रह गया, तो लास्ट दिन जब इंडिया सिंस इंडिपेंडेंस होगा तो लास्ट दिन ये लिख लीजिएगा. और कल से मैं जब पढ़ाऊँगा तो मैं बीच बीच में लिखवाते रहूँगा, ठीक है. और आज जो नहीं लिख सके वो लास्ट डे जब इसका होगा ना, ये इंडियन सिंस इंडिपेंडेंस, तो वो लास्ट दिन मैं लिखवा दूंगा. यस, एनसीईआरटी अगर पढ़ना है तो क्लास 12 की पढ़ लीजिए, ठीक है. और जैसे जो टॉपिक है उसको अभी तक तो ये सब एरिया से क्वेश्चन आया नहीं है, तो एक जैसे इमेजिन कर लीजिए कि प्रिंसली एस्टेट पे कोई क्वेश्चन आया, खुद से क्वेश्चन बना लीजिए, या मैं असाइनमेंट दूंगा, लिख के लाइएगा. उसको 200 वर्ड्स में कैसे लिखेंगे, ये सब चीज़ को सम अप कैसे करेंगे 200 वर्ड्स में, तो वो ऐसे कर सकते हैं.
डेली क्वेश्चन दे दीजिए अगर ये
एक लिख के लाइए, कल लिख कर लाइए प्रिंसली एस्टेट्स पे, ठीक है. हाउ डिड, ऐसे लिखिए, हाउ डिड इंडिया address the immediate challenge of, how did India address the immediate challenge of integrating princely estates into India? इंडियन यूनियन, इनटू इंडिया नहीं, इनटू इंडियन यूनियन। उसी में एक टेल है, लिखिए हाउ हाउ नहीं, व्हाई इम्पोर्टेंट इट, व्हाई इट वाज इम्पोर्टेंट, व्हाई इट वाज इम्पोर्टेंट for the nation building territoriality of a new country। इसको लिख के लाइए 200 वर्ड्स में, ठीक है। तो क्या है कि बेसिक कि क्या क्या तरीका अपनाया गया और एक दो प्रॉब्लमेटिक स्टेट्स में थे, उसको इंडिया ने कैसे एड्रेस किया ऐसे। और ये नेशन बिल्डिंग, टेरिटोरियल नेशन बिल्डिंग के लिए क्यों ज़रूरी था, क्योंकि सेंस ऑफ जो ज्योग्राफिकल कॉन्टिग्विटी होती है एक नेशन स्टेट में, उसके लिए क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट था, ये 200 वर्ड्स में लिख के लाइए। अगले दिन इसको रेफ्यूजीज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेकिंग को हम लोग करेंगे। उसके बाद जो है एक नेशन बिल्डिंग का सम अप करके उसके बाद डेमोक्रेसी एंड इंस्टीट्यूशंस पे आएंगे, ठीक है। फिर फॉरेन पॉलिसी का भी एक करना होगा, क्योंकि दूसरे क्वेश्चन उसमें किया है। हम मुझे लगता है 7 डेज में हो जाएगा, ठीक है। एक दिन ज़्यादा हो सकता है या एक दिन लंबा हो सकता है, लेकिन 7 डेज में हो जाना चाहिए।